is Totally 80s, the podcast dedicated to the music of the greatest decade ever. So, turn up your Walkman, loosen that scrunchie, and get ready to talk 80s with your host, Lyndsey Parker.
Hi, I'm Lyndsey Parker from Yahoo Entertainment and SiriusXM Volume, and this is a special Stuck at Home, or Safe at Home if you prefer, episode of Totally 80s. And since we're obviously all stuck at home, why not take a second to follow us at Totally 80s on Facebook and Instagram, or you can email us your comments and show ideas at podcast@totally80s.com. So obviously we're trying something different with the episode. We're streaming it on video. We're living on video as well as on our Totally 80s YouTube channel. So check us out there if you're so inclined. And joining me today, speak of the 80s devil, right now is my partner in all things 80s, the other John Hughes. Hello,
Hey,
John.
Lindsey, what's going on?
Oh, just, nothing's changed much in the world since I last saw you. Anything in the news? Anything going on?
For me to be stuck at home, surrounded by music and things I love, I'm really miserable.
It's kind of funny and ironic because the very first podcast we ever did for Totally 80s, or one of the first, was the Cold War Paranoia playlist. Kind of, we were ahead of our time, I guess. I don't know. It's a fitting playlist. Check that one out on the Totally 80s podcast if you guys haven't heard that. But right now, we have a special guest joining us today. I'm real excited about this. He is a comedian, a producer. He's a multi-hyphenate, radio personality, writer for television shows like Billy on the Street, Girl Boss, Wet Hot American Summer, First Day of Camp, and a personal favorite of ours here, Difficult People. And he's also an experienced podcaster. So I'm feeling a little bit intimidated right now, to be honest, because you may know him from his excellent podcast, The Fogelnest Files. So spoiler alert, I think you know who this is, which you haven't gone back and check out. You should really check that out. And most importantly, people who listen to this particular podcast will probably remember this guy best as the creator and host of the MTV pioneering show Squirt TV, a show he started in his bedroom. So he was definitely ahead of his time when he was just 14 years old. So we are stoked to welcome to Totally 80s, Jake Fogelnest.
Thanks, everybody. Wow.
Nice shirt.
Thank
Night
you.
Flight shirt.
Yes, you can, people can get these. Night Flight has a streaming service.
I know. I've been binging it lately.
It's pretty great. Wow, that intro makes me sound like a big get.
You are. We're stoked. We're excited.
All right.
We're stoked. This is going to be a great conversation. We're feeling very charitable today. That's another spoiler alert because charity's on our minds. Again, ahead of the time, because a lot of people with the current, thing we're having now with this pandemic and stuff, there's so many, charity concerts, and that's great. But this is not a new trend. Honestly, it's kind of funny because I think immediately when people think of the 80s, we don't think of people. We think of it as being a selfish time. We think the me decade. We think excess. We think Dynasty, Dallas, Alex P. Keaton, piles of shoulder pads, piles of jewelry, piles of hair, piles of cocaine. But, pop stars were in the 80s trying to give back. Now, did they have ulterior self-serving motives? Maybe. Did the money necessarily end up in the right hands? Possibly not. Was it some of it patronizing or even like downright colonial? Perhaps. But there was some good, and most importantly, there was some good music that came out of it, some good 80s moments. So today we are going to talk all about some of the charitable events of the 80s, Band Aid, Live Aid, Farm Aid, even Hearing Aid, which I don't know if many people remember, because let's face it, we are all stars. We are all stars. We are the world. So I guess obviously the first place to start is Band Aid because, Sir Bob Geldof, as he is formerly known, he kind of kicked this all off with what I consider to be, Midyear doesn't agree with me, the best Christmas song of all time. No, not the best 80s Christmas song, not the best charities Christmas song. Screw Rudolph Red-Nosed Reindeer, F off White Christmas. Do they know it's Christmas? It's the best Christmas song of all time. It's the hill I'm gonna die on. Discuss.
I'm giving you the RCA dog head tilt because
it's he hates. Well, I wouldn't say Midyear hates the song. Hates a strong word, but I've interviewed him a couple times about it. He thinks it's like just okay.
Midge doesn't get the credit that he is due for Live Aid, for Band Aid. Like sort of he Sir Bob is a very big personality, but Midge was, 100% in there, in the mix, making all that stuff happen with Bob Geldof.
He actually wrote he not only co-wrote the song with Bob, but he played every single instrument except the drums. which were by Phil Collins.
So I can get why Midge is a little like, as someone who's, helped launch a lot of people's careers. I get it. I'm with Midge on this one. Is it the best Christmas song of all time?
Yes.
Against like Slade's Merry Christmas, Everybody. Like,
we'll save that for the Totally 70s podcast.
No, I'm not doing the Totally 70s podcast. Come on. But I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of great Christmas songs. It's a great Christmas song. I love it every year. It's certainly a lot better than Sir Paul McCartney's Christmas song, which also gets a little bit more flack than it should, but it is terribly annoying. I always like to, if somebody's playing Simply Having a Wonderful Christmas Time, I always like to swap it out for Temporary Secretary, just as like, I know it's not a Christmas song, but it gets me in the spirit.
Well, when I interviewed Midge, I wouldn't say he was actually bitter. He was just sort of saying it's not. He actually, and I think both of you might agree with me.
Bitter. It's okay to be bitter.
He just said that he thinks it's not his best work, and what he thinks is if it was just a song that hadn't been recorded by every single major 80s star of England in 1984, capturing that moment in time when all of our minds were blown that all these people got in the same studio together, Duran Duran, Boy George, Spandau, etc., that people wouldn't really think of this song very fondly. He says he thinks it's an amazing moment in time, but not necessarily a great song.
Best work. No, it's not his best work. That would be great. That would be crazy. It's not,
let's give Midge a smidge here. I think
I'll give him more than a smidge.
Yeah, he needs some credit. But let's talk about how big that everyone thought Paul Young was going to be. And how he was featured so heavily in that song, like he was going to be the big future superstar.
He actually opens the song.
What do you mean? He's not? He's not big?
Well,
actually, what's funny?
I don't know.
To the point,
in my household, yeah.
Maybe to the point that's funny that Midge doesn't feel too fondly of this song is about a year and a half, 2 years ago, Midge and Paul Young went on tour together. And I saw them at the El Rey out here in LA. And they did separate sets. But at the end, they get on stage for an encore. I'm like, this is it. They're going to do It's Christmas. What other song could they do? Instead, they did The Boys Are Back in Town by Thin Lizzy together.
Yeah.
They had a tour. I was so bummed. But yeah, to your point, John, well, Midge sure was in Thin Lizzy for like a second. So I guess that was it. But anyway.
Also, that's a cool song to end your show with.
Yeah, but I wanted my moment. But yeah, to your point, John, Paul opened the song. He got the first line, which means, they were kind of like, we got to start with someone big.
And
they could have had Bono. They could have had George Michael. They could have had Sting, instead they had Paul Young. But I like Paul Young. But do you know who was the first person who actually sang, like approached the mic in the studio was?
I know the real answer, but I'm going to give you my joke answer first. Marilyn. The real answer is Tony Hadley.
Never forget Marilyn. Marilyn was there. Never forget that.
I've heard this. Is it true? Does anybody know? Did Marilyn crash? I heard Marilyn crashed.
What do you mean? Crash like career-wise?
No, was not invited.
Oh.
Friggin' showed up like, I'm here, head flip.
Well, I don't know about that, but here are the fun facts I know from my Midge interview. Just a rundown of facts. One, speaking of Spandau, we've talked before on the Duran Duran podcast we did for Totally 80s that Duran Duran Spandau were like always in this rivalry. They were the Oasis versus Blur of their day. So they were in a race from whatever respective, countries they were gallivanting around in to see who would get to the studio first. And Midge does not remember who got to the studio first, but he does remember that Tony was the one that broke the ice and said, I'll sing first. So like Spandau kind of won. The other thing is not super environmentally sound. Speaking of racing to get there, they invited everybody, and Marilyn's more famous friend, Boy George, of course, was top of the list. Culture Club was so huge in '84, and he wasn't there yet. Everybody else was there. Duran Duran were there. Status Quo was there. Everybody was there.
I feel though, just to interject, as a very important '90s cult figure myself, you brought up Blur versus Oasis, and that is often a topic of argument. And the answer to Blur versus Oasis is, of course, Pulp. Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That's actually great that you brought up Pulp, because Pulp do an amazing parody of the Band-Aid recording session with bad cover versions.
Yes.
We'll get into parodies later, but that's the number one parody is that one. It's genius. Yeah, Pulp are like one of my favorite bands ever. We'll do a totally 90s podcast too. We'll invite you back.
Yes.
But Boy George was asleep in New York, and Bob, I don't know if it was Bob or Midge, but someone called him and was like, where are you? Everybody else is here. And he's like, oh shit, I like overslept or whatever. And he's like, who's there? Because everybody, is very competitive.
Yeah, because a lot of people were oversleeping at that time in London. And, look, here's the thing about being in rock and roll. Sometimes you oversleep, you don't oversleep. I haven't overslept. I haven't overslept in almost 14 years, but oversleeping, it's a problem. And we really. I was thinking about right now in this situation. What are people who oversleep a lot? What are they going to do? Are they?
They have no excuse anymore.
Yeah,
This is their time. This is their time to shine. Nap time. But to finish my thought, so basically, Boy George was like, well, who else is there? Bob was like, literally everybody who's a big deal in New Wave is here except you. It looks really bad that you're not here. And so not environmentally sound, considering that they were supposed to be helping the world, but he got on a Concorde and from New York and got there in time, hustled over there just to do his part. Didn't get that first line that either went to Paul Young or Tony Hadley, depending on which version of history you're going. But, when I saw this as a kid, it was a big deal. This was to have all these people together on one song, whether you want to debate whether it was a good song, which it was, or not.
Yeah.
The fact that they were all together, and this is what kickstarted everything we're going to talk about. This is what kickstarted, all of these charity songs. And I think it holds up. But are you guys aware of all of the remakes that have been done of the song? It's been remade 3 times.
Well, yeah. I mean, I imagine they're always trying to trot it out to get that Christmas #1. In England. So, why would you not go to the nostalgia of it? But, the original to me, which really is the thing that kicked off the charity craze of the 80s, where, by the way, all the money was mishandled, and it's going to happen again. So just look forward to that in our time right now. But seeing that video for the first time on MTV, and I believe buying the single, which I'm pretty sure I still have.
I have it.
It was so much fun, and such cool artists, and such with like the right spirit intended, and you had the classic Geldof Guilt, playing in. Hey man, you don't want to not show up for this. You're gonna look like an ass. But
let's talk about the biggest band of 1984 did not show up.
Who was that?
Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
But if you have the single, they're on the backside. The flip side, the B-side, is just a bunch of people who couldn't show up being like, feed the world. And actually, speaking of feed the world, it's kind of funny because I was talking to a friend of mine, a millennial. He thought, and this actually goes back to what I was saying, where Midger thinks that it wasn't a good song. This song doesn't really have a chorus, right? The closest thing that has a chorus is like the 10 minutes of Feed the World at the end. My millennial friend thought that these were 2 different songs. He thought there was a song called Do They Know It's Christmas and a song called Feed the World, because they sound like 2 different songs, and he's heard disjointed bits of them, in supermarkets or whatever. He didn't realize they were the same song. I educated him. But the backside, the B-side of the vinyl single has random people like David Bowie and stuff talking.
You actually know a millennial. What are they like?
Fine. I have lots of millennial friends. So millennials aren't really that young, to be honest. They're like late 20s to late 30s. So I got a few.
I'm turning 70 next week, so
you look great.
Thank you. I'm looking.
So you weren't really 14 when you started Squirt TV.
Oh no, that was it. That was
a Doogie Howser situation.
Yeah, that was a huge press lie. No, I was 14 when that started, and I have it now, and I own it. I own that show, and I put out a little bit of it on Instagram, my Instagram yesterday, because somebody else was like, hey, look at this clip. And I was like, oh, well, if you want it, I've got a really good quality version of it. And now it's just sitting here all digitized, all ready to be monetized. And
amazing that you forced not sign it over to Viacom back in the day.
Oh, no. No. Well, here was the thing. I had done a public access show, right? It was a pre-existing show. I also, so MTV, listen, this is behind the scenes stuff, but here's what I knew. I knew that Letterman owned his show, and I knew that Carson owned his show. Okay. And there was a bidding war for the show between fledgling Comedy Central and MTV. Obviously, it was going to go to MTV. It was the much bigger network at that time. This was even before South Park. But as part of the bidding war, ownership was on the table. So basically, I've been really good at show business since I was 6. I don't know why. And that's why I'm blissfully in development right now and not in some Zoom meeting writing on some thing that I have no passion for.
Well, I'm very glad that instead of doing a Zoom meeting, you chose to do this instead.
Oh yeah, this is a blast.
Well, let's go back to Do They Know It's Christmas for a minute, because I did want to mention honorable mentions, a couple other ways to enjoy this song. Have either of you seen when, speaking of Christmas #1, when they were on Top of the Pops? You know, as we all know, on Top of the Pops, everyone mimes along.
Yes.
They got whoever could do it, and then they're like, hey, people that weren't on the song, hey, Tears for Fears, hey, Thompson Twins. And then Bono wasn't there, so Paul Weller like lip syncs his line like super awkwardly, and like Simon Le Bon, they cut to Simon Le Bon, he's not lip syncing his line when he's supposed to. It's the best. It's the gift that keeps on giving every Christmas time. Thank you, YouTube.
I have to look that up. It's
so amazing.
And then to watch that. Yeah,
but then there's a couple other versions. There's a stock Aiken Waterman version of 1989 that has Kylie and Bros and all those people. I think Rick Astley's on it. I'm very fond of Band-Aid 20 from 2004. Speaking of Britpop, Pulp are not on this, but it has Ash, members of Ash, Coldplay, Morcheeba, The Divine Comedy, Turn Breaks, Keen, Snow Patrol, Sugar Babes, Thrills, Supergrass, Radiohead, Blur. Not Oasis, but Blur. And Dizzy Rascal rapping, and Justin Hawkins from The Darkness singing like super high. It's great. I think he does the Bono part. No, wait, Bono was there and did the Bono part.
Every band that is basically their albums on vinyl are worth a fortune on Discogs right now for some reason. Yeah. For some reason, it's like
very much captured much like the '84 version, captured a very specific moment in time. Like know, when I was looking at it actually today to brush up, I'm like, oh, the Thrills, yeah, I remember them. But speaking of Bono, I think this is a good transition to just talk about like the whole like phenomenon of these charity songs in the '80s, because some people say that a lot of these endeavors didn't age well. They seem kind of patronizing. They seem like this kind of like white heroes conceit that that now seems a little like tone deaf. And
there's things from 3 weeks ago on Twitter that don't age well and seem a little tone deaf.
Well, Bono had the breakout line. I talked to Midge about this, where, at the time U2 were not they were big, but they weren't the U2 of the Joshua Tree that we know now. That would come a couple years later. And he had the big breakout line where everyone took a step back in the studio and was like, oh, wow, that's a moment. That's a great vocal moment. And it's a line that when people complain about this song, they usually point to, which is, tonight, thank God it's them instead of you. And when I heard that line even then, I didn't take that literally. I took it as like, oh, this is tapping into the guilt we have when it's kind of the guilt we're feeling now. Like, we're safe at home during this pandemic. Thank God we have food and a place to live. And there's other people who are not. Thank God it's not us. So I got what it was tapping into, that sort of guilt that people have when they're privileged and they're acknowledging it. But a lot of people do not like that line. And I could be mistaken, but I think in more recent versions of the song, they have changed that line. So what do you guys think about the whole tone of this sort of these well-meaning things that might now seem like kind of like, it's a little toned down?
I give it a little slack because it was done so quickly on the fly. I mean, it was literally put together overnight. So,
am I correct? But like, isn't the story that like Bob Geldof was watching like a documentary on the BBC and was just like, that's not right. We got to. I don't know why I keep doing Bob Geldof's voice, but like,
I'm enjoying it. Keep it going. Do the whole podcast in that voice.
You got to give him pick up the phone. We give him the money. I feel like he was watching a thing on TV, probably in a nice house, because, you know, the Boomtown Rats, I mean, I don't know if they were the biggest band, but they certainly had a few bucks. And he's watching a thing on the BBC, and it's terrible. And he said, we should do something. And he did, you know, get off his ass. And here's my thing about it. Like, punch at your weight level with these things. Like, right now, here's what I can't do. I can't go to a hospital and help because I am not a doctor. Okay. So there's two things I can do. But there's not just two things. There's several things I can do. The first thing I can do is shut up. Okay. And listen. The second thing I can do is use my skills to try to entertain, and then try my hardest to make sure that it is going to a charity that is on the up and up. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I think that where you have to go back and look at Bob Geldof's intentions, you know, and I think that the intentions were good. Now, when the intentions clash with rock star ego, that's where things get messy. But I think that it does begin with a good intention. I also do believe that Bob Geldof, I wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of Bob Geldof. I'll just say that.
Well, hopefully he likes your impression you did and won't.
He'll never hear this. He'll never hear this. I am a bizarrely huge Bob Geldof fan. I love the Boomtown Rats. I have a Boomtown Rats question that, Lyndsey, perhaps maybe you can answer, or John, maybe you can answer this, but this has confounded me for quite some time. The Boomtown Rats Elephant's Graveyard sounds so much like an Elvis Costello song. Yeah. And but it's not. It's a Boomtown Rat song. Now, is that Bob Geldof being inspired by Elvis Costello? Is it a rivalry with it? And I was trying to look up, like, what is the relationship between Elvis and Bob? And I'm just, this is one area where I plead total ignorance. But that Elephant's Graveyard, that's like, man, that sounds like an Elvis Costello and the Attraction song. Are they making fun of Elvis Costello and the Attractions, or are they honoring them, or is it just, this is what music sounded like that year?
That's a really good question, because of course the most obvious thing about the two of them is that organ, that farfisa or whatever.
Yes, that's the organ. Yeah.
And you're kind of like, what? And the lyrics aren't anything to do with any kind of rivalry that I can get.
No. Yeah, it's just it's musically,
right?
Musically,
influences. You know, Bob gets a pass for me, not only for the music and Band-Aid and Live Aid, but for his stunning turn on SCTV.
Oh my God, the best
teacher's pet.
Yes. Don't forget The Wall, Pink Floyd The Wall. He was amazing.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Can I tell you, I had a friend, who got to be 35 years old and had never seen Pink Floyd The Wall. And said, hey, they're playing Pink Floyd The Wall at midnight at a movie theater. I've managed to get to be 35 and I've never seen it. And I said, well, we're going. And so we sat down, we watched Pink Floyd The Wall, packed midnight theater. And it's California. Weed is legal. I don't smoke this stuff. My friend doesn't smoke this stuff, but it was in the air, and it was like watching it as it was intended in the 80s. And I got to tell you, that movie holds up, man. The first time I tried to watch Pink Floyd The Wall, and this is coming from a guy who was watching John Waters' Pink Flamingos when he was like 6. Okay.
It all makes sense now.
For some reason, I popped in the VHS of The Wall, and within the first 3 minutes, it was too scary. And I could not return to it. Like something about
the meat grinder scene freaked me the hell out. I had nightmares about it.
It was way before that. It was the stampede, the war footage mixed with the stampede of the concert.
It's not a happy movie. It's no Grease 2. It's no Grease 2.
No, it is no Grease 2, which I have just looking over to my left. I think I have 4 different pressings of Grease 2.
Oh my! Okay, we're going too off topic, but
Yeah,
we should have had you on the movies one where all I did was talk about Grease 2 for like.
We
20
can do
minutes.
it. Listen, every time I bring up Grease 2, it becomes hell on Twitter for like a day with people wanting to discuss it. That's a whole other podcast.
I think you meant to say heaven, but okay.
No, it starts as heaven and then it turns into hell because then it's just like people saying the same thing over and over again. It's the
superior Grease. But anyway, let's
want to hear from verifieds.
We gotta get back on topic. So obviously, okay, whether it was well-intentioned, which I think we all agree it was, whether it's aged well or not is up for debate. Band-Aid, Do They Know It's Christmas, started the charity explosion of the mid to late 80s. So then America got involved. They were like, okay, Brits, we're going to do you one better. It was a more successful song. It was a bigger selling song. It was co-written by Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie. It won the Record of the Year Grammy. In my opinion, it is not the better song, but it definitely, in terms of people, you were making the jokes a minute ago, John, about Paul Young. In terms of people that were on We Are the World by USA for Africa, there's more names on it that hold up now as being still considered A-list names, such as
Dan Aykroyd, man.
Yeah, Dan Aykroyd. Okay, Dan Aykroyd was there, yes. And Ghostbusters was, Rad.
Oh my God, it was massive at the time. Yeah. No, for Dan Aykroyd has such a great musical background. It's just a funny one.
Here are some of the big names, though, that to this day still they're not people like Whatever Happened To.
No.
Stevie Wonder, Paul Simon, Tina Turner, Michael Jackson, who I mentioned, Billy Joel, Diana Ross, Dionne Warwick, Willie Nelson, Bruce Springsteen, of course, Daryl Hall, Steve Perry, Huey Lewis, Cyndi Lauper, Bob Dylan with the meme that we still enjoy today, the confused Bob Dylan meme. He was confused. Lindsey Buckingham, Ray Charles.
Lindsey Buckingham. Go Insane era Lindsey Buckingham. I want
the best era of Lindsey Buckingham, in my opinion. When he went New Wave, which is another podcast that you can listen to on Totally.
Oh my goodness!
And of course, Quincy Jones, produced it and oversaw this. So this was like kind of the U.S. trumping, no pun intended, trumping. I hate that word now, but the U.S. trumping the U.K., being like, okay,
why do you hate that word? Why?
Oh, no reason. But anyway, let's stick with 80s.
I think he's I don't know. I think that guy's a riot. I'm kidding, of course. What if I came out and I was like, you find out Jake Fogelnest a Trump supporter? That's straight. Yeah. Okay. No, We Are the World was massive. It was every massive star, and now we can look back at legends. And I think what was important to remember is that they checked their egos at the door.
They had a sign that actually said that.
Someone did not check his ego at the door and therefore was not part of We Are the World. Jake, you want to take this one?
No, you tell us, John, because it's more fun.
Mr. Prince.
Yeah. But
what's the full story there? What's the full story there?
What is the story? Yeah, what is the story? I know that he showed up with this big bodyguard chick, right?
Here's the story. He was Prince. That's it. He was like, I don't need to do this. Right. I don't need to do this. I'm Prince. I'm going back to Minnesota. You all have fun. That to me is one of the best things about Prince, is that Prince's ability to say, no, I'm Prince. You guys all have fun. I'm not doing this.
If there are 2 other people in the world that will remember this, it's going to be you two. The week or 2 weeks after that, Saturday Night Live does a cold open with Billy Crystal as Prince in blackface, kind of unfortunate.
Oh, no.
They do a song called, with him singing as Prince, I Am Also the World.
I do not remember this. Is this on YouTube, or did Prince's estate have that scrubbed?
No, that is. First of all, here's an interesting thing about Saturday Night Live. They've been editing the show since it's aired, so that is not scrubbed. That is scrubbed. You're not going to be able to find that. I'd get it for you, but But you think that's bad. And this is not scrubbed because it's on their DVD set. In a Don Kirshner, Paul Schaefer as Don Kirshner, introducing the Village Persons, singing a song called "Bend Over, Chuck Berry." Look,
what?
Yeah, no. This is the thing about Saturday Night Live.
Wait, does that exist? Can I see that?
Yeah, I can. Oh, yeah, I'll text it to you. No,
Please do.
I've been waiting. That exists.
God.
Yeah, bend over. Chuck Berry. I remember sitting in the up on 17 at SNL at some point in the early 2000s with a 3/4 inch tape machine. I don't think they allow you to do this anymore, like pulling old SNLs. And me and Horatio Sands popped in Bend Over Chuck Berry, and we were just in disbelief. We were just like, whoa.
I'm in disbelief just even knowing such a thing exists. Well, since we're talking about Saturday Night Live, before we start talking about all the other kind of, offshoots, and of course we have to talk about Live Aid, where the forces of Band-Aid and
Billy Crystal in blackface. What?
Yeah,
Not for the first
I don't know
time.
about that.
Not for the first time.
All of these comedy shows have, and we mentioned the amazing Pulp parody, which was bad cover version, where they had people who were doing celebrity impersonation, like singing, and actually they had a Jarvis Cocker impersonation. But there have been so many amazing parodies. There's been, In Living Color did Career Aid, where it had like has-been pop stars singing for their own selves. RuPaul's Drag Race did a one called Can I Get an Amen? Can I Get an Amen? Is great. And that actually went to charity. You could download it for the LA Gay and Lesbian Center. Yeah. Saturday Night Live did one because, like all these songs, just like how Band-Aid got redone a bunch of times, they did a We Are the World 2 in, I think, about 10 years ago, or maybe 5 years ago. I had like Justin Bieber and people in it. And then Saturday Night Live that year did a skit. Saturday Night Live that year did a skit called We Are the World 3, Raising Awareness for the We Are the World 2 disaster. Yeah, and so it had all the people like basically going like, we're sorry we did that.
What is better, the second We Are the World or will.i.am's remake of the Entertainment Tonight theme?
I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, you must. You simply must. Okay. Entertainment Tonight said, we need to spice up our theme song. So they went to will.i.am.
I'm not aware of that. Have you guys seen, there's two others. I want you to tell me what your favorite parody is. There was also The Simpsons, We're Sending Our Love Down the Well, a classic. Kidney Now from 30 Rock, where they actually had Elvis Costello and also the Beastie Boys and Cyndi Lauper again. She's like actually, so many people all singing for Kidney Now. And then we also have to remember when the Ramones did their video for Something to Believe In, that was sort of like a parody of that with like Exene and people like that. And also like, it was actually more of a parody of Hands Across America. I remember at that time, like the Ramones had like these t-shirts that said Hands Across Your Face. I had one at the time and I'm really sad that I missed it. But I don't know if you guys are seeing that I'm wearing my Live 8 t-shirt from when when they had a concert in Hyde Park in 2005.
To celebrate, it was to celebrate the 20th. It would have been to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Live Aid. So 2005 sounds right.
You're missing one of my favorite parodies though from SNL from the 90s when the cast was like I think 35 people and they did one to support free range chickens, and it's infamous because Chris Farley is Carney Wilson. And it's brutal.
Oh no!
Yeah, it's not good.
Here's the thing about Saturday Night Live. It's always batted about 30%. You go back, watch the shows from the 70s. I know it's when they get it right, they get it right, but they get it wrong along a lot.
As far as parodies go, though, I really do think I really like the Ramones Something to Believe In, because that one had African Bombata in it, had the Circle Jerks, it had X, B-52, Sparks, Weird Al, Penn and Teller, the Untouchables were in it. So I don't know if you guys have a favorite parody, but I think that is a good way to springboard into the fact that the reason why this became like something to parodies, became like a conceit, like self-important celebrities linking arms and singing over earnestly when maybe they had ulterior motives, is because after We Are the World and Do They Know It's Christmas, the floodgates open. Like everybody was doing not a parody. It might have seemed like a parody. They were parodying themselves, but everybody started doing charity songs.
The charity single bandwagon. And Joey Ramone, of course, performed on one of my favorite it was to raise awareness, but Sun City, which was put together by Steven Van Zandt, and if We Are the World was like the biggest stars in the world, Sun City was like, who can little Steven get on the phone? to get this message out about bands that were playing Sun City against apartheid, and it's sad, like huge bands like Queen, they played, at the casinos or whatever in Sun City, they get paid a lot of money. It was, but meanwhile, look, I'm not afraid to go on the record and say apartheid was bad. Look, I don't care what blowback I get on Twitter. Apartheid was bad.
Courageous.
Okay, all right.
You've convinced me.
Yeah, good. I don't mean to twist your arm there, but apartheid. But Sun City, that was Joe Ramone. I think African Bambaatas in that as well.
I have the list to say when you talk about some of the hip people. Here are some of the people that were on it. I'm not going to read all of them because there's too many. But Lou Reed, Grandmaster Melly Mel, Michael Monroe from Hanoi Rocks, Stiv Bators, Peter Garrett from Midnight Oil, Gil Scott Heron, Nona Hendricks, George Clinton, Peter Wolf, Bobby Womack, Peter Gabriel. It was Curtis Blow, the Fat Boys, Africa Bambaataa, Keith Richards, Ronnie Wood, Bonnie Raitt, Hall & Oates. This is a pretty hip lineup here, probably the hippest.
I would say, and also, a chance. I think there's so many of us out there that were waiting, dying. When would Lou Reed and Bobby Womack get together on a project?
Finally.
And finally it happened with Sun City.
I do have to say though, when we're sorry, John, just real quick, in all seriousness, joking, by the way, apartheid is bad. When this song came out, it was my first knowledge of what apartheid was. They weren't teaching it in school. It wasn't on the news channels I was watching as a little kid. And so in terms of what this song set out to do, I don't know what charitable endeavor it was partnered with off the top of my head, but if it was to create awareness, it worked. I knew what apartheid was because of this song.
It was incredibly effective. It got a ton of play on MTV when MTV did not have to play that song. And, Little Steven did a really, really good thing with that record. And, it's really funny when I think about like the Ramones and Joe Ramone and just like the politics of being in that band where, Johnny obviously not so politically aligned as Joey, and Johnny would get angry when Joey would speak out and do stuff like that.
Joey would get angry at Johnny, or Johnny would get angry at Joey?
Johnny would get angry. Well, Joey was angry at Johnny for a number of reasons, but Johnny would get particularly angry with Joey's liberal causes. And that's just some fun Ramones history, which is always important to throw in.
Well, under all this seriousness about Sun City and Artists Against Apartheid, I was going to make a really snarky comment about how that was the birth of pretentious Bono in that video when he's like,
yes. Is this when the sunglasses?
Yeah.
Face?
It's all Steven Van Zandt's fault. It's all apartheid's fault. It's apartheid's fault.
He probably saw the bandana and he was like, the bandana is pretty cool. I need a signature thing myself.
This guy.
I got to one up Little Steven.
So
Live Aid, have you talked about Live Aid?
Wait, before we talk about Live Aid, because I think that's the positive way to end it, there's one more with the word aid in it we have to talk about. So all of the songs that we've talked about were reasonable hits or MTV hits or even huge Grammy winning hits. But let's talk about Hearing Aid, because this is one lost to the ether of time, which is weird because before I brushed up on this. This is the heavy metal Band-Aid, basically. And I brushed up on it by watching the YouTube video. I forgot that this had the most...
Would you like me to show a little bit first before we get into it?
Let's do it.
I actually don't remember this.
All right, everybody.
It had A-list metal people. I really forgot how A-list metal this was. It's weird that people don't remember this.
Right.
Let me make sure. Let's brace ourselves. Let's see if I can do this right. You ready?
Yeah, there it is.
For the children.
This is Ronnie James Dio.
Yeah, that's not a small ask.
That's not a bad get, yeah. Now we're going.
Bob Halper?
Let's talk about Dressed for the Fault Line in July.
Motley Crue are there?
Sometime in the night when you're feeling the cold, take a look at the sky above you. Those are faces.
Did it take them like 6 months to get everybody together at the same? Even how many canceled sessions were there?
Let me just read some of the names because, like I said, I'm not going to read you all the names, but just the biggest names because I was genuinely surprised that I don't really remember this song. Don Dokken, Kevin Dubrow from Quiet Riot, Rob Halford, who we just saw, Jeff Tate from Queensryche, Rodney James Dio, we just mentioned, Carmine Appice, Frankie Banali from Quiet Riot, Vivian Campbell, who was in Dio at the time and later in Def Leppard, members of Wasp, members of Motley Crue, Mick Mars was there, Yngwie Malmsteen, Ted Nugent was there, Vince Neil was there, Neil Schon was there, Harry Shearer in character as Derek Smalls, and other members of also Michael McKeon, David St. Hubbins was there, members of Twisted Sister, members of Rough Cut, members of Blue Oyster Cult, members of Ozzy Osbourne's band, Y&T. This was at the time, really credible metal people, not hair metal people, whatever.
No, that's real. That's real metal. Yeah. What was the cause?
I believe it was the same cause it was for Africa. And, they just wanted to get in on it. It was a genre specific because USA for Africa was pop and soul stars.
Yes. Yeah.
Band-Aid was, new waves, mostly new wave stars. So they wanted their metal one. And I remember it being in the news as this was coming out. And, it seemed like it would have been a big deal. But I mean, you saw the video just now. It looked super low quality. It looked like it was filmed on someone's, beta cam, and I don't remember MTV once playing this.
I can tell you right now there was a line item for that budget that it went somewhere else. It went to something else. I think you guys can figure out what it was.
Piles of cocaine that I mentioned before.
Yeah, that would be the line. You can't write that down. I will just say professional services.
Yeah, I will say this has kind of lived on because Wendy Dio still does a lot of charitable stuff in her husband's name. And this was the start of it, was that foundation.
Hearing aid, yeah.
Hearing aid. So, good on her.
Good on her.
I was not a metalhead at the time in the 80s. I really, as I've gotten older, I've started to really appreciate some of the metal first, but look, I'm pretty punk and kind of a total new waver, so that's just my deal. This is interesting. This is really a part of 80s pop culture history that I did not know about. So I thank you.
Before we talk about something that everyone knows about, which is Live Aid, which I think is the perfect capper of this, because it was when everybody from all of these things came together for what at the time, now we sort of take for granted that there are all these big events that happen. There's one happening the weekend we taped this for pandemic relief, but back then it was kind of a big deal to get all these stars together. But before we do that, do any of you have a recollection of something that was parodied in the Ramones video, Hands Across America? Because I went to Hands Across America.
You participated.
My hand was across the valley. My family insisted we went.
We got T-shirts. We got T-shirts. I know. I specific, and I remember the single. Who sang on that? Because that I just remember as being
I don't think there was a single. It was just the thing where everybody was told to go to certain markers in.
But there was the song. There was Hands Across America.
I think you're making that up. Really?
No. Full on.
MOR Carpenters kind of thing. There were two spots. I grew up in Ohio, and there were two spots to meet for this. Youngstown, Ohio, and Cleveland. And every spot had a celebrity. Do you know who the celebrity was at Youngstown's meetup?
Who?
Michael friggin' Jackson.
Yeah, no, it was a big deal. Hands Across America.
In Youngstown.
I remember it. I remember there was a T-shirt. There was a charity single. We didn't go because I don't know. It just wasn't like I was go with my mom, like a hold hands with strangers. Like, let's just put it this way: this pandemic has not drastically changed my lifestyle all that much. It's just I'm not a go outside and hold hands with people type
John,
of person.
I want to tell you, I just looked up to see who else was in. I looked up on Wikipedia to see who else was on there. You kind of got screwed because Michael Jackson's cool, but if you had been in another city, hold on, I was just looking. If you were in Baltimore, you would have been joined by Emmanuel Lewis and R2-D2.
Oh my God.
If you'd been in Cincinnati, you would have been joined by Chewbacca, which I think would have been great.
How great it would have been if Baltimore asked John Waters.
If you'd been in Little Rock, Arkansas, you would have been joined by then Governor Bill Clinton.
Oh,
if you were in Albuquerque, you would have been joined by Sonny Crockett himself, John Johnson.
Oh my God.
If you had been in San Bernardino, you would have been joined by Bob Seger and Charlene Tilton. If you had been in Santa Monica, you would have been joined by George Burns, Dudley Moore, Richard Dreyfuss, and Donna Mills. So that was the place to be. I was in Encino in the Valley, and I don't remember there being anyone there. I just remember my parents dragging me there because they thought we should be part of history. And we stood in the middle of Ventura Boulevard, and I was like, can we go now? This is lame. My hand is sweaty. Why are we here? How long do we have to hold hands? Can I go? It was right in front of the Big Ben record store on Ventura Boulevard. I was like,
how long a drive is it from Studio City to Encino?
Like 15, 10 minutes.
Okay, they couldn't have found a celebrity to drive 15 minutes and to Encino.
Well, Michael Jackson lived in Encino at the time. So what was he doing? What was he doing in Youngstown? I'm actually looking this up. Hands across. Sorry, this is exciting. Hands across America, Encino.
It's not only it's exciting; it's important.
You guys vamp for a second because I'm going to pull out my brochure from Hands Across America.
Okay, so we didn't. Oh wait, I found from the archives, Hands Across America, LA Times. Maybe they will say who was at Encino. I just remember, I don't have a free subscription. I don't have a subscription to LA Times. I can't read that. So I just remember thinking it was kind of, my parents thought it was going to be a thing where, I guess they were right because we're talking about it now. My parents thought it was going to be one of those things where we would, many years later, be like, we were there.
Right.
We were on Ventura Boulevard. Oh my God.
On Sunday, May 25th, 1986, 6 million Americans will join hands from Los Angeles to New York.
What was does it say in the flyer, John, did this raise money or was this just to
well, they sold T-shirts, so I'm imagining that T-shirt money went to something.
You had some merch here. You had a little thing that you filled out and said, "Hey, yo, I'm going to be there."
Wasn't it for homelessness? I feel like it was for hunger. Here.
Ken Cragen, who was Lionel Richie's manager at the time and was instrumental in co-organizing We Are the World, was the organizer of this. So we'll never know. But I guess it created awareness because we're talking about it like 30 seconds later.
It created an awareness. It also created a tax shelter.
Bill Cosby, Kenny Rogers, Pete Rose.
What is Bill Cosby up to lately?
Yeah,
he's sheltering in place. He's staying at home. Well, let's wrap up.
Americans to help Americans. That's all it says.
I don't remember
to help Americans. That's it.
To take a stand to fight hunger and homelessness here.
Homelessness. Yeah, got it.
Well, I did my part. I stood in the middle of a hot Encino day with my parents complaining like a surly child. So I did my part.
It is a project of USA for Africa.
Got it.
Well, now let's talk about the ultimate, the piece de resistance, the ultimate statement of all of this. Everything, we had all these other, charitable endeavors, some songs that either did well or didn't. But everybody came together on one glorious day. We're almost up on the 35th anniversary of it in July 1985 for Live Aid. Yeah. It was a multi-country thing, mostly in Philadelphia and London. Of course, we all remember that Phil Collins did both because of that wonderful Concord that existed in the excessive 80s that helped Boy George out during Band Aid. So I remember, some people remember, depending on their age, when they saw, the Beatles on Ed Sullivan or someone the moon walking or any other kind of major good or bad thing that happened on TV. And I will never forget watching this. This was something where the world stopped for me. I was on vacation at the time. I was on a holiday vacation. It was summertime. We were in our hotel room. My parents said, let's go to the beach. I said, nope, staying in, ordering room service. They're like, you're crazy. Why do you want to stay in and watch TV? I said, Live Aid's on. I'm not, this was the thing I remember. I don't remember Hands Across America so much. this is what I remember. Of course, we all remember it mostly, if for nothing else, for Queen, because that was considered to be one of the greatest performances of all time, and it was just beautifully recreated in an otherwise problematic film that I didn't like, the Queen film, but we don't need to talk about that. But there were so many other.
We do need to talk about it because it's Bohemian Rhapsody. I've come to find a new appreciation for because it is such a giant mistake. It is the first time I watched it, I was like, all right. But then I watched it again and I said, I'm glad this exists as a historical document. And weird, like anything that might have worked in Bohemian Rhapsody, the credit must go to Dexter Fletcher, who did Rocket Man, which is fantastic.
I love Rocket Man.
Rocket Man is fantastic. But here's what I remember about Live Aid. I was in Philadelphia. I was with my mother. My mother went out and bought 6 of the highest quality VHS tapes that you could buy. Aww. And she said, we need to record this because
that's good
this
parenting. That's
is
good
important.
Parenting.
Yes, I had good parents. I had good parents. They just had to deal with me. But she went out and we were prepared and we watched Live Aid as it unfolded, and we were in Philly and stayed up, watched the whole thing. And it was unbelievable. And one of the major highlights was the debut of Mick Jagger and David Bowie's "Dancing in the Street" video.
That debuted during the
debuted during Live Aid and was also released to movie theaters. To let people know Live Aid was still something you could contribute money to. And so there's 35 millimeter prints of that are
probably not necessary to have a 35 millimeter print of that video, but
if you want to go, well, I don't know if we'll have movie theaters again, but if say you're going to see Labyrinth, wouldn't you like to see the Dancing in the Street video? That premiered during Live Aid, and that was just that's a blip on the radar of the important things that happened.
Yeah, I forgot about that. For me, of course, I don't know how much we even really need to talk about Queen because we all know that we all saw it recreated. So like I said, in Bohemian Rhapsody, the one thing I liked about that movie was how they recreated that really well. Yeah, it kind of it's held up as one of the greatest, or maybe the greatest concert of all time. But there were other moments that we remember maybe because they weren't so great. And there are moments we might forget. Like, I think a lot of people forget that Madonna sang with the Thompson twins there. That's not going to ever happen again. And that was one of my favorite moments because I was a fan of both bands. But there were some fails. Like, I think a lot of people, probably older fans, especially going to watch that or going to attend it, thought like the Led Zeppelin kind of semi-reunion was going to be a high point.
That was unfortunate. Yeah.
I'm gonna defend him a little bit. Okay. First of all, let's check out a clip.
Okay.
And then we'll see if I'm like defending something for no reason.
Maybe you should have watched it first and vetted it.
Exactly.
All right.
I think right there, just a very brief clip, but it's just nobody's in top form. Again, everybody's heart was in the right place, but Led Zeppelin did, redeem themselves, I think, in the end with, Celebration Day. And
do we have the Madonna and Thompson twins clip just for my own personal enjoyment? That's all right.
I don't have that, but on Zeppelin, I will give them credit for something that they were innovators in with that is they have successfully scrubbed that from pretty much everything officially released to the point where you can't
it's not on like your official Live Aid Blu-ray or whatever and stuff. And then but I will say, didn't they blame kind of Phil Collins? Like, he took a lot of heat for that.
Yeah.
You don't blame Phil Collins. He was doing. If you blame Phil Collins, it was because he was jet lagged from having to fly from Philly to London in the same day. Or
speaking of that,
which was a stunt,
Jake had brought something up, which we'll play right now.
Yep.
Phil.
You're the only one who really knew me at all.
Oops.
Oh,
Yeah,
and he made a face.
You can see him. That's it. You can see him make a face. He's like, I have flown. I'm flying the Concorde. This is a big deal. And I just hit the bum note in front of the entire world.
But then Simon Le Bon said, wait, hold my beer.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's no secret that I'm a big Duran. One of the more recent podcasts we've done for Totally 80s was completely all about Duran Duran, where I believe we discussed this moment. But it was a big deal when Duran Duran were at Philadelphia. A couple of the members of Duran Duran were doing double duty. They were also playing with Power Station, which, if you know Michael DeBar,
I was going to say, I think
it was actually his first performance ever with Power Station. Robert Palmer had recently decided he didn't want to tour with them, and they had Live Aid coming up. It was obviously going to be a huge appearance for Power Station, and they recruited Michael DeBar, and his first time ever singing for them was at Live Aid, and he did a very good job. But obviously there were already Fishers.
Looking, I think I have some Michael DeBar's records like right by my
spider
left side.
So, but there were Fishers going on within the Duran Duran camp already. I really wish Arcadia had played as well. Oh, very nice, Michael DeBar.
This is the one that I'm only human.
Okay, well, let me finish my Duran Duran thought, because I go on tangents here, and I want to make sure it's very important for me to talk about how important this moment was, in not a good way. Like, it kind of spelled the end of the Fab Five. So I'm a big Duran Duran fan. I was excited that some people were upset that Power Station and Arcadia had happened because, you had to pick a side. I liked Arcadia better, but, I like both. Or they saw it as maybe a sign at the end that Power Station and Arcadia meant that Duran Duran were going to break up. So I saw it as getting a double dose of Duran Duran, because I always assumed the Fab Five would come back together, and I did not realize it wouldn't happen until 2003. So Power Station performed with Michael DeBar, and it, from what I recall, it went well, especially considering the circumstances that it was Michael DeBar's first time in front of a live audience, and he'd only been in the band for like maybe 2 weeks. But Duran Duran also performed, and it was the Fab Five. It was all three of the Taylors, Nick Rhodes, and Simon Le Bon. So they were flying high. They had View to a Kill Out, which, fun fact, is still the only Bond song to go to number one. And Just As I Will Die on the Hill, the Band-Aids, Do They Know It's Christmas, is the best holiday song ever. We all agree that View to a Kill is the best Bond song, right? Okay, thanks.
It's a strong Bond song. Right. I will agree with that it is a strong Bond song. So
Duran Duran performed it at Live Aid, and they had a bit of their own fail. And let's see it.
And watch Andy.
That's what I'm saying. God bless the camera person that knew to cut to Andy at the right moment. Andy is like, fuck this. Pardon my French. He just has this look like, I'm quitting this band tomorrow. And I guess he did, because that was the last time that all five members of Duran Duran performed together until 2003, when they reunited at the Roxy, and I was there. But Andy was already, he had his eye on the door already. And when that terrible note hit, he just had a look on his face like FML. And again, give a raise, give a bonus to whichever camera person had, whether it was, thought to cut immediately to get that reaction shot of Andy Taylor. But that was, the end of Duran Duran as we knew it for a while. And then, Power Station and Arcadia were just one-offs, or in the case of Power Station, a two-off. So that was an iconic moment for all the wrong reasons. But, it was a live broadcast, anything could happen.
Another misstep I have to point out at Live Aid was Adamant choosing to do his current single, Viva La Rock.
Can I tell that story?
You can.
There's a whole story behind it. So I interviewed 5 years ago for Yahoo. I did an oral history piece on when the 30th anniversary of Live Aid happened. And I interviewed Adamant. Now, the story he told me, so, I didn't fact check this, but this is a story he told me. This is how he remembers it. Is he, this was 85, right? So Adamant was not quite as big as he had been, a few years earlier in England. But he was one of the earliest people to sign on to do Live Aid, even though he wasn't part of Band-Aid or any of these other songs. But then when everybody else started jumping on board, he got a call from the organizers of Live Aid saying, we're knocking you off the bill because, Led Zeppelin people want to do it. So at the time, Adamant was, I believe, managed by Stuart Stuart Copeland, by Ian Copeland or Miles Copeland, one of the Copeland. Miles, okay.
Miles.
So Miles basically said, if you, the Police played Live Aid, right? I believe. Well, basically, I'm pretty sure they did. I'll double check.
I think they played the US Festival. I'm not sure.
Good question.
Look that up, John. But basically, Miles this is a story that Adam Ant told me, that basically Miles said, if you don't let Adam stay on the bill, you're not getting, insert name of bigger client here. It might not have been the Police.
I can't know the Police, because that would have been post Synchronicity was 84, and I think the Police were Dunzo. Maybe Sting. I think it would have been more likely, but I don't.
I'm looking at my article right now because Adam had some holes in his logic, so I have to go by what he's telling me. He said that it was Sting. That's what he said. He said, I'm going to read the quote. This explains some stuff. Okay, so Adam said this to me. I did Viva La Rock because I thought it was in the spirit of the day, but in retrospect, it wasn't a very pleasant experience for me because people would come up to me endlessly for 30 years saying, why didn't you two stand and deliver? Initially, I was asked to do 4 songs, but then I think what happened is big bands started to show interest like Queen and Bowie. And late in the day, through Harvey Goldsmith, the promoter, I was told, quote, you're off the show. You're not doing it. Fortunately, I was managed by Miles Copeland, who managed Sting, who said, if you don't put Adam on, you're not having Sting. So he got one song. The deal that was made was, okay, you can stay on the bill. So that's the facts. It was Sting that they used as the bargaining chip. Adam stayed on the bill, but he only got to do one song, and he opened the show. And as he said, a lot of people, and as you said, feel he shouldn't have done his most recent. I understand. I guess in retrospect, he's like, I'm going to do my most recent single if I only get one song, because obviously if he'd had the 4, he probably would have done Stand Deliver. But here's the thing I gotta say. I gotta tell this story because it's hilarious. Obviously, Adam's bitter about it, and I don't blame him. If he was going to get booted off the bill like that, and he actually even told me he was on like the printed early materials, out to press. So this is what happened. This is funny though. It's a really funny story. So when he was telling me this story, started to complain to me that he thought it was messed up that he only got one song, but that U2, and I'm putting air quotes when I say this, that U2 went over time, and as a result, they threw off this is what Adam's saying. They threw off the whole schedule. So this is how Adam remembers it. Adam remembers that when Bono very famously went out into the crowd with his mic and kind of got lost out there for a while and, went off script and went into the crowd and kind of, took him a while to get back to the stage. He remembers U2 going over time and that therefore ruining the schedule for the rest of the day. And by the way, Adam kept calling him Bono when he said this. When Bono. So he said that when Bono went in the crowd, he didn't think that was fair that U2 were allowed to go over time when he had a short set. And I was like, that doesn't sound kind of right. And if you look, that's not what happened. Yes, U2 were going on too long because of that stunt. As a result, their set got cut short. U2 have done interviews on camera where they have said they thought they messed up because they didn't get to do their biggest song at the time because of the fact that their final song got cut because of Bono's antics. But they kept it on a schedule. So Adam, I let him talk on the phone with me for like 20 minutes where he bitched and moaned about how it wasn't fair that U2 ruined everybody's set for the rest of the day. And I just nodded politely and then did some fact checking and Adam answered on. It's the end of my story, but he's bitter and I don't blame him.
How much truth is there to the story about Bob Geldof, sort of in the early days of announcing Live Aid, saying like bands like Queen are going to be there, just basically announcing things to get people to sign up, and then managers calling and being like, what is this? Like how much truth is there to that? Because I watched a long BBC documentary about Live Aid that Bob Geldof participated in and stuff, but so I'm just so curious as to it's a pretty massive event they put together, and I'm curious, like the pecking order of the booking. I don't really care so much about the charity as much as the business aspect of things. I
actually don't know if that's true, but if he did that, it's kind of genius because if he said, "Oh, Queen or whoever is going to be there," and then Queen don't, they're like, "Oh, you guys are assholes."
Again,
you don't want to do something for charity, you jerks.
Would not want to be on the wrong side of Bob Geldof. Okay, that's all I'm saying. And who knows what happened on that phone call with Michael Hutchence.
Well,
Bob Geldof's very powerful with words. That's all I'm saying.
Don't go there. There's an article here in Rolling Stone where, just to confirm what I said, where they interviewed you two, where they said that because Bono ventured into the crown, that hung them out to dry, leaving them without the chance to play Pride in the Name of Love, which was supposed to be their final song. And the band members thought they blew it. They thought they blew a chance to play their biggest hit. They were mad at Bono, but of course, and Bono actually thought he'd screwed up. He was upset. Of course, they found out quite the opposite. It ended up being a career-making performance for them. So, Adam Ant, if you're listening, which I'm sure you're not, you're wrong. You got it wrong. But I do think Adam should have been allowed to play more than one song. I don't think that's cool.
And Bob Geldof, if you're listening, I'm on your level, buddy. I know what powers you have. I have the same powers. You and we should get together. I get you, and I think you'd get me.
Let's make it happen. Let's get him on the podcast.
Hey, I could talk a half hour about Banana Republic alone. So,
so let's wrap it up by saying, I sort of started at the top of this saying how as well-intentioned as some of these things may have been, perhaps they didn't age well or didn't have the direct practical effect that was hoped. The money didn't get into the right hands or certain things dated. What do you think the legacy is of this era of charity in the 80s? What good did it do? Or did it do any good? Or is it just sort of look back now as like a bunch of bandwagon hopping?
Well, I think that there was a lot of good done in the sense of raising awareness and raising some money. There was bad done. If we look back, you can look back at the tremendous amount of white privilege that is involved with most of these charity events. And I think that we should look to the past and these events as we are going into hard times and learn from the mistakes of them, but also learn from the successes of them. We're in a weird time in our world right now. We also got a lot of truly classic, wonderful performances and some truly classic, wonderfully awful moments that will live on forever, to the embarrassment of certain people, but to the enjoyment of an audience that really forgives those people. Like, if I ever was to come up to Phil Collins, the first thing I would mention to him would not be, hey, remember the time you hit that bum note at Live Aid? It would be like, hey, man, what were you thinking with the Land of Confusion video? Like, the world needed more of those spitting image puppets in our face? Actually,
the answer to that was yes. That video is brilliant. But to that point, the first thing I would say if I ever walked up to Andy Taylor would be like, what was going through your mind when Simon hit that note at Live Aid? Because I think he'd probably enjoy talking about that. But we have run out of time. A special thanks so much to our guest today, Jake Fogelnest. Jake, is there anything you want to, you talked about some of the things you got in the works. Anything else you want to fill our listeners in on?
Yeah, I'd like Rhino to put me on a mailing list again. I'd like, special edition vinyl, my copies of Devo or albums, or, obviously I have originals, but those red and blue ones. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm in such secret development right now I can't talk about or plug anything, but I'm dead serious. I want back on that Rhino mailing list. I got Harold Bronson's book right here, which he gave to me. The podcast is behind a paywall. Listen to that or don't. I don't see any money for it. I want on Rhino's mailing list because I need more records in this house, and I'm in real good with Shout Factory. So I'll just say that.
John, you're gonna get on that.
Real good with Shout Factory. So I'd like to plug this as an opportunity for Rhino to get in good with me. And now you want to get in now. Because because the stuff I'm working on, now's a good time to get in.
Understood.
A perfect way to end this charity-minded episode. You begging for free stuff.
No. I'm entitled. I have been doing this for 26 years. I've been in this business. I am entitled to the Rhino stuff. Look, I'll buy the Big Monkeys box set. That's fine. Of course. Okay. because there's only about 1,000 of us that are crazy enough to do that. I get that.
10,000.
But
Okay.
10,000, okay? And you still have some in the warehouse. Is it sold out?
It's gone, buddy.
It's gone. All right, good. So it's a collectible now. But like, some of these reissues that hopefully aren't from digital sources, you send them to me. I've had 26 years. I've earned it.
I feel you did earn it today with all your insight on this podcast. I think you earned a spot on the
You have to take up space for yourself. If you don't, no one else will.
And always be your own advocate. I agree.
Yes.
Right. Well, I'm your advocate as well because I really enjoy that. I'm an advocate for you, John Hughes, as well. You're awesome. I am Lyndsey Parker. I'll advocate for myself. I've been joined today by John Hughes and Jake Fogelnest, and we want to thank you for listening, guys. Remember to give us a rate and review on your favorite podcast platform, and we'll catch you next time. Feed the world.
Bye.
This was Totally 80s, the podcast dedicated to the music of the greatest decade ever. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Totally 80s, and please leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until our next episode, catch you on the flip side.